friends, and welcome to World Build with Us, the podcast where we create fantastical worlds with help from you, our listeners. My name is Rob Hilferty, and I'm here with my co-hosts Daniel Quinn and Courtney Staples. On today's episode, longtime patron Gluax has it's a prompt, all right. I'm going to get into that once we get into it. But before we do, I want to remind everyone that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. Now, let's dive right into today's episode, which comes from Gluax, long-term patron. The prompt is, welcome to the School of Performing Arts. Well, except magic is manifested through these arts. Tenet number 1, the houses are split according to the schools of magic: mind, body, and soul, or air, earth, and sea. However, there is a fourth hidden house based around dreams, reality warping, mind, space, time, etc. Tenet number 2, there is a dark lord who is stopping dreams as much as possible, but does this to stop reality from being destroyed. In order to fight this Dark Lord, the teachers and dean is secretly supplying the students with a drug described in Tenet 3. Tenet 3. There exists a drug that you can take to help induce lucid dreaming while awake, but rather than being consumed, it has to be used for your art. Painters mix it in with paint, authors use it as ink, etc. The downside of the drug is that it lowers your creativity. Not permanently, but like any drug, it takes a long time to recover. So, this is a great premise, an amazing I mean, really one of the strongest prompts that I've heard in a while, except not really, because this is literally the exact same premise that I rolled with some friends of mine, and I actually had a chat with Discord folks about this exact prompt. So Gluax is just being a little motherfucker here and just being like, hey, do the thing that you talked about. Do that as a prompt, which I'm cool with. I've got to jettison preconceived notions that I've had about this game that I've already run, but I'm very curious to see what Daniel and Courtney bring to this particular setting. So Daniel, anticipating that you're going to be the one to try and deviate as much as possible, what have you got for us for your first tenet?
I mean, the first thing I wanted to talk about too is the nature of a prompt in general. And I'm going to use this example mainly because I love Gluax, and him and I have a personal relationship, so I can be a little cruel. I think that this prompt is actually a bad example of a prompt for our podcast. And here's why. Because I think it has lots of great details, and I think it is a fully formed world, which is the problem. I think this prompt actually contains 7 tenets, because it's achieving a lot of specificity. And what that ends up doing when we have prompts like this that have a lot of specifics that build in motivations and detail at this level is it kind of short circuits what the magic that we do, which is creating a world from very vague premises. Like when you look at this prompt, what really their 3 tenets really are is there's this magic school like Harry Potter, there's a Dark Lord like Harry Potter, and there's some sort of performance enhancing drug that causes lucid dreaming. That's the guts of this thing. But the problem is it's littered with all these other specificities. Like if you're going to count out the actual tenets of this prompt, you've got 3 named schools, a hidden school, a Dark Lord, the Dark Lord's motivation, Dark Lord's secret motivation, the teacher's motivation, and then you have the drug, which is too many tenets, I think. So let me just start by saying that, because I'm not going to adhere to all of those specifics, because then I'm kind of in a bind as far as being creative. So I'm going to acknowledge that there is this magic school that has these 3 flavors in it. I'm going to acknowledge there's a Dark Lord afoot, and I'm going to acknowledge that there's this performance enhancing drug that causes lucid dreaming. Does that make sense?
It does. You know, this is a dig at me, right? Specifically, you like.
Oh
there's
yeah,
a reason,
I know.
Yeah. Okay. This is a spite prompt if I've ever seen one.
Right. And I think it's a good example because it's like it's coming in with preconceived notions. That's the problem. This is a fully formed. If we follow this tenet exactly, or this prompt exactly as presented, we're not world building. What we're doing is fleshing out a world that exists. Right. world building in the sense that we normally do, where we're going to create the very pillars of the world. Here, the pillars are in place, and it's kind of like play in my sandbox. We make sandboxes. We don't play in sandboxes. That's the distinction I'm trying to make.
Yeah. It's like they provide us with the sand and we make stuff out of it. Yeah.
So my tenet here, I have a couple tenets. My first tenet is only the janitor is fully aware of the conspiracy, and nobody but the students believes him.
I love that.
So you're fighting fire with your specificity here. I kind of dig that, actually. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, like, I think you can give very specific details, right? But the specificity can't speak to the nature of the world. Like if I had said the performance enhancing drug is blue colored and it causes people to fall in love, and the purpose of it is that this is a romance story and I want everyone to have romance interactions. That's so specific, it already ties up the setting and tells us what it's about, and that's not the point of our podcast, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, I suppose I don't necessarily see it that way. Like, I think that part of the fun for me while we're doing this is the exploration, like what we kind of discover out of this. And I think I'm more amenable to the idea of exploring someone's sandbox for a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, as long as we have the option to create in the sandbox, like if all the castles are in place, then all you're doing is walking from room to room, confirming things.
Or you have to go through the sandbox and wipe aside all of the castles and start from fresh.
Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, if we're going to do that, let's just be bullies here and like kick the sandcastles down a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, just not in the face of the nerd, like the old, like 1950s, like advertisements. But yeah, I mean, let's figure out what we want to explore here. So Courtney, what was your first tenet? What are we working with here?
Well, I think it's kind of funny that Daniel brought up romance because one of my tenets is that it's rumored that students who have romantic dreams about each other are destined to be together.
Oh,
Oh my. So I love that quite a bit, actually, because now we're adding in like an element, and I can't help but think that we're like looking at a dating sim, or at least like looking at an element of dating simulator, you know?
That is pretty much my goal with this.
Her agenda.
Yeah, that's my secret conspiracy here.
So wait, I have a follow-up question for you then, Courtney. How are you going to add in child sacrifice if we're starting with the dating simulator aspect?
That's a good question. Maybe that'll come later. Maybe that'll be the twist.
All right then. So yeah, like I kind of alluded to, this idea that Gluax is bringing us is an RPG that I ran for some friends of mine while I was here in Kansas. And in order for me to kind of deviate as much as possible, so the tenet that I want to go with first is this school prides itself on avant-garde performances, which means that what we're looking for here is something that is not concrete. It's not like you can paint a door and then a door appears. That's not how the magic necessarily works. What we're looking for here is a little bit more esoteric. So we're blending the artistic with the occult a little bit more than what we're looking for here. Does that make sense?
I think so. Like, what do you picture it as?
I want it to be more art school confidential. So like a little bit more pretentious to the point of being slightly goofy, but also like what I'm picturing here in terms of tone is this idea that imagine some really goofy stuff, but we have to treat it deadly seriously because that's how magic manifests in this particular setting.
It's a contemporary art program.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you're exactly correct. Yeah.
My minor was digital arts. Well, my minor ended up being creative writing because the digital arts program was a joke. And I hope you guys hear this, Stetson University, because it really was. But it was a sort of contemporary nonsense. And so I can imagine the kind of absurdities. Like I remember students, like they were in a contest to make increasingly stupid ideas for their projects in school, where it's like, this is so pretentious and stupid. Like, why is the school being paid for this? That was the kind of attitude I had to that entire program.
Oh God.
You
Yeah,
can
this
quote this.
this gives me flashbacks to when I was in undergrad. My major was illustration, but the way that my college worked is like the first year was the foundation year where you kind of did all these interdisciplinary things. And I just remember a lot of that and like just painful critiques where we talked about the juxtaposition of the symbolism and the yeah.
Oh, Corey, you're jumping the gun in my second tenet with the critiques bit, but you're actually, you're not doing that. You're foreshadowing it, and that's okay. But but that's fine. That's fine. Yeah,
I do like that though, because it's something that we all hate, and it's often made fun of, like in art school movies. So I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who moved to Boston in a house full of 6 mass art kids, like I got a lot of that, and I got a lot of bad ideas, and I got exposed to a lot of really bad or avant-garde or just kind of. I'm excited to explore bad art is what I'm trying to explain here. So that's what I've got going on here. Daniel, why don't you kick us off with your second tenet, sir? What have you got for us here? What are we working with?
Because I'm ignoring all the extra strings attached to the Dark Lord, my tenet is that the Dark Lord needs students to daydream in order to fully materialize himself. And that normally he appears as collections of whatever craft they're working on. So like a pile of books or paintings that are talking to them. I'm inspired by kind of the Shadow King from Marvel, this kind of trapped immaterial thing that's haunting people.
Oh, I gotcha. I also feel like it can work with what Gluax has in his overly specific prompt about like the Dark Lord stopping dreams as much as possible. Because if we differentiate between like daydreams versus sleeping, like lucid
real
dreams,
creative dreams,
right? Yeah. So like he wants your mind to wander so that he can get like more of a grounding in this reality or something.
That's what I mean, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I think that works really well.
Yeah, I'm reminded of 2 things here, actually. One is Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously. You know, like you got the Freddy Krueger angle, sure. But perhaps what I'm more interested in discussing a little bit here is it works surprisingly well with my tenet if you think that the Dark Lord is in charge of the curricula. And if they're so interested in creating like really boring avant-garde art or art that makes so little sense that people's minds can't help to wander, like surprisingly that makes a lot of sense where it's like, oh, I don't understand this at all, so my mind's just going to drift, and then that's when you start thinking about the Dark Lord of art a little bit.
Yeah. What I liked about that villain, at least from Marvel, is how psychological it is. So it gives us an opportunity to focus on each student's sort of issues, you know. So I could see if there's a romance subplot, daydreaming, and and daydreaming about someone materializes a romantic entanglement that is also in line with how this being operates.
Yeah, I only know of that villain from the show Legion.
Yeah, I loved it in Legion.
Yeah, which was very like avant-garde and surreal as a show. But I do like that idea that he's sort of like lurking there. And if we were picturing this as a visual thing, like a show or a movie or whatever, like while these daydreams are happening, you'd see him kind of in the background, like glimpses of him, but you wouldn't really see him. Like you wouldn't recognize that that's what's there until later on. Kind of like the Too Many Cooks video.
Oh God.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm also picturing like this kind of like vague shape in the form of like the Green Man, which is this kind of like Celtic or Northwestern European kind of like representation of nature, right? So you'll start seeing like vague shapes of faces or figures in, you know, like the text or in the paint, and it's like, oh, you know, it's like at first you're looking at like a Rorschach test, and then all of a sudden it looks a little bit more like this kind of the dream lord, so to speak. And then I like that a lot, where you can see that pop up, or you can see a particular image, or maybe just a symbol that pops up in the background and in various ways. I think that's a really cool thing to consider.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's like a I don't know what you would consider it, but a perception thing called pareidolia, which is where you just see different, like, you see recognizable shapes and things that are random, like if you're looking at clouds and you see, I don't know, figures in there, or looking at patterns on a ceiling and you see stuff in that's pareidolia. So I could see like that becoming increasingly intense as you daydream more and get more separated from reality.
Yeah.
I love that a lot. Actually, I love the idea of increasing pareidolia. You know, like, okay, this is going to sound weird, but like as a genre conceit, right? Like there is the prestige show where you see someone descend into paranoia. I love the idea of descending into pareidolia, where suddenly everything starts looking like something else, where suddenly you start seeing shapes and symbols and people and faces in things that, and I think that if you want to do it visually, you could do something like that in a really cool way, actually. Like the more, like the further along the show gets, the further you start seeing that Dark Lord everywhere. You start seeing in every branch, every shape, every piece of art. And what I think is interesting is that potentially that's just accurate. Like as this thing manifests into reality, the idea that they manifest in art and become a more prominent part of these art pieces, I think becomes a tangible threat and a tangible thing that can happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's interesting too is that this metaphor parallels the criticisms against some contemporary art, and that it becomes so detached from reality and from and reality by that I mean like material concerns, right? You'll have a white canvas with a red dot on it and this 3-paragraph long abstract describing how it has to do with the intellectual void of capitalistic volition, blah, 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 for 300 words, right? It's so detached from reality, and it was created by like a 22-year-old who had never had a full-time job. So it's interesting because that detachment is what's happening in this story, that the detachment, the daydreaming, the longing to have a lover, or to start your life, to be someone, parallels the unreality of this creature that's coming into existence. And the more detached they are, the more they daydream, the more they slip out of reality.
Yeah. And I wonder, to like tie it into your first tenet, the janitor being aware of all of this, if he's aware, or they're aware because like they have, I don't know, they've
grounded.
been exposed. Grounded, and also like exposed to the entirety of the school. Like he's not just sitting in one classroom like the students, he's going to all these different places and starts picking up on these like subtle things of like, wait, I thought that shape was also over here. Like what's going on?
Exactly my intent there.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm just imagining all sorts of interest, like because you're obviously approaching this from the principal viewpoint of a student, right? That is usually how we're going to be approaching a narrative like this, whether you're doing it as a role-playing game or as a story. So you look at that janitor, and the janitor themselves are like a grim, you know, like kind of like a scary figure, right? Like everyone looks at that janitor and like, okay, it might be an obvious red herring, but it's also like, they are scary, and you can see them like actively destroying pieces of art, you know, not understanding that the janitor sees like all this occult activity, all of this weird cult shit happening, and they're the only ones who are like, oh, this is the only way that we can get rid of this. And so the janitor is actually the one trying to tamp down the kind of manifestation of this Dark Lord, unknowingly, unwittingly even.
I could see it from different points of view, though. Like you said, it's obviously from a student point of view, but I could see a kind of funny story from the janitor's point of view, where like he's surrounded by all of these like pretentious art students, like talking for hours about their, you know, line of black on a white canvas, and is kind of like, okay, but that's actually like the Dark Lord coming to eat our souls. Like, nobody else is seeing this. It's just me, really.
Ooh, I mean, that is potentially really funny, but it evokes that kind of pareidolia, descent into pareidolia that I was talking about, where maybe it is the janitor who's the principal character in that sense.
I could also see an RPG where when you play this game, like maybe the students are lower class students in this high class art school, and that's why they end up like teaming up with the janitor, and the janitor becomes your like, what's his name, Zardos or Zordon? Your Zordon from Power Rangers, you know. he's the one doling out the missions and helping you figure things out, you know. So there's a couple of I could definitely see the janitor being the principal character in like a novel for sure. But you have some angles there, and you could also have it from the perspective of like the students totally detached from a janitor as a center point, or from even the teachers would be an interesting perspective. If the teachers are unaware, you know, of the conspiracy.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. If we alter that prompt just a little bit, and we've already done so, I think that having like a student-led cult as a thing is actually really cool, because normally like it inverts the power dynamic, right? Normally it's the students or it's the teachers who are indoctrinating students into cult-like behavior. But if the cult-like behavior is coming from the students to begin with, and like all of a sudden you start seeing like teachers who are like suddenly influenced by their students, I think that there's potentially some really rich and interesting things going on there.
I did have a thought of the teachers being unaware, like of the conspiracy, or maybe unaware or unwitting. You know, they could be involved, but unwittingly involved. So it would be interesting to have a grounds up thing where it's coming from one of the students, or one of the students is being manipulated and maybe pulls in other teachers who end up being unwitting participants in it. It would be an interesting take. I think it could work that way.
Yeah.
Like, I think the expected one is what the prompt has, where it's like the teachers top down are facilitating this. I could also see where it's like the teachers aren't aware of what they're doing and they're a part of it, you know, and maybe it's facilitated by one of the students.
I'm becoming more attracted to this idea the more we talk about it. This idea that, because now I'm thinking about, well, who's the first teacher who's going to buckle? Right? It's like the teacher who desperately wants to be accepted as cool, like the teacher who's starting to use like young people slang and stuff like that. Like, I'm still hip, I'm still with it, like trying desperately to like hold on to some sense of youth or like vigor in that way, not understanding that like, no, you're old and uncool now and you've just got to deal with that. But they're like, all right, I'm going to join this dream cult, I guess, and maybe that will make me cool again. But it also gives you like an inroad into like faculty on faculty type violence, which I think is potentially interesting too. And by violence, I mean conflict, not necessarily fisticuffs. Although, honestly, actually watching art teachers fight would probably be fucking amazing. So I'm going to keep that on the table.
Yeah, I would have liked to see that during my time at art school, I think.
By the way, it's probably like the sculptor and or metal workers who are going to be jacked as fuck and kick everyone else's asses. Just tossing that out there. Okay, the world is starting to take a lot more shape now, and I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see things. So, Courtney, hit us with your second tenet. What have you got for us? How are we working blood sacrifice into your romance story? What do we got?
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to tie in with blood sacrifice, but of the various school events, the winter ball is the event to be at, like a combination of a senior prom and the Met Gala.
Oh my God. That's a great idea. Holy shit.
Horrible outfits.
Yeah, pretentious, artsy outfits.
That seems like that's also the potential for a very pivotal event to occur involving the villain, you know?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And also, if you play this as a dating sim, you know, that would be your goal, to like get a date to the winter ball.
That's like close to the end or like the midway point, maybe, you know? Can I add in a third thing here besides just like, you know, dance plus Met Gala? Can we also throw in some performance art while we're here?
Of course. I mean,
Oh yeah.
what do you think the dance is?
Oh
Horrible
yeah.
performance art. These kids can't dance.
It's like 99% shoegaze and then 1% somebody who's like an actual dancer.
Yeah.
So I would like to point out at this point that we are ragging the fuck out of like some art school right now. And it's like anyone who's from art school know that this is from love and from people who have like lived through it. So like, I don't know. I just want to point that out, that this is definitely coming from a place of love. And also like, God, we've seen our stuff before, especially Courtney. Especially Courtney has read it a lot more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming from a place of you should fucking leave art school and get a real job because you're going to be penniless when the next economic crash comes.
I am not so much a bootstrap capitalist as Daniel is, but you know,
I am a Marxist. Thank you very much. I'm just telling you that we live in a world where if you're going to come out of a $100,000 degree, which I've had peers who did that stupidly, you're going to be bankrupt. And guess what? House prices are not getting any cheaper. Interest rates are going up. And we're going to have Trump in 2024. So you better strap in. Get ready for it.
I will say, as somebody who went to art school, like there's definitely a way to make a living out of it. It's you just have to know what you're good at and get into that niche. And
OnlyFans.
And as Daniel would suggest, OnlyFans. But granted, I am coming at this from a biased point where like my experience in art school was there was very much a difference between the fine art majors and the more like practical art majors. Like I was in illustration and there was also like industrial design and stuff like that, who were more grounded in my point of view.
Yeah, no, I have a lot to say here that I'm not going to say at all, but I will say this. Anyone who's young enough or anyone who can hear me who is considering art school or going into humanities or even going into grad school, right? Please. Well, actually, I disagree with that. I am very happy with my grad degree. But that's what I was going to say. Never pay for it. Never pay for a master's program or a PhD that is in the humanities or something like a soft science, because it is not worth it. I can say that having just gotten my master's degree in English, it is not worth it. Do not spend money. And also, if you're applying to programs and they're like, you're accepted, but no funding, that means that it's a polite no. So this is the practical advice part of our podcast sandwiched in here somewhere. Don't do that.
If you're going to get a master's degree and you think it's something that is practical, don't make that assumption, kids. Find out what it actually pays, because a lot of your potential degrees are going to be invalidated by artificial intelligence very shortly. This is someone who has a master's degree in publishing. Not smart.
And to tack on here, like I had my master's primarily covered by my employer at the time, which was great. And, you know, if you can do something like that, then go for it.
Yes.
But yeah, otherwise, definitely consider the cost.
Yeah, I paid $50,000. You know what I could have done with $50,000? I could have done a down payment on a house earlier. I could have bought a really cool car, a whole lot of hookers and cocaine. Like there's a lot of useful stuff $50,000 can do for you instead of a degree.
See, I paid like less than $5,000 for mine. Wow. So I feel like I got a pretty solid deal.
Yeah, you can do anything for $5,000. Why not?
Yeah.
I just want to circle back to the OnlyFans thing that Daniel was talking about before. I think that knowing how to light buttholes is probably a very practical use of a degree. So I'm just saying that, yeah, there is something to be learned here in terms of like industrial design and like lighting and sets and stuff like that, photography. So, you know, don't give up on your dreams. Just understand what you're getting into, you know? But guys, we do have a podcast that we have to do about world building. And Courtney, did you in fact give your second tenet, or did we just divert so hard that we forgot about it?
I did. I don't remember at all how we got into the subject of grad school, but yes, it's the winter ball. That's the event to be at. Yep.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. Gotcha. Cool. Do we want to say anything more about that, or do we know that it's like, hell yeah, that's an amazing idea and we love it?
I'm okay with leaving it for next time. I think there's a lot to build off from there. Like Daniel said, it seems like a good conflict point. All
right. So I suppose we should move on to my second tenet, which is very simple. In art school, your finals typically come down to a defense, right? And in a magic school where you have to manifest magic through your art, I want defense to be literal. And so when you do your critiques, it's not as though it's like you're sitting down and people are talking at you. You're literally fighting for your life against some kind of a magical wizard duel, in the form of your art has to withstand, right? Your art has to, your performance has to withstand scrutiny in the form of literal magic assaults from teachers and perhaps other students. So that's my second tenet. I thought it'd be fun and goofy, and that's what I wanted to go with. So that's what I got.
I like the notion of literal criticism, literal physical criticism, because I usually what I found fascinating about sitting through art criticism in the few courses I had in the minor that I dropped because it was garbage, was when you have other 20 to 23-year-olds giving their criticism of your piece with literally no informed, like they have no basis for giving an opinion that has any worth, except for the few things they've learned in that course. And then you're supposed to walk away with that. That was a lot of fun. So I could see the physically enduring the volleys in various ways from these other students trying to undermine you would be interesting, especially given romantic entanglements that we've established earlier.
Yeah. There's also like the stamina aspect of it, where I have distinct, very fond memories of one of the courses that I had to take in my freshman year, which was like the foundation year where we took all these different things from different majors. The class itself was scheduled to be 4 hours long, I think, but the professor would often keep us for 5+ hours and of just critique. And it was like the most agonizing, like, kill me now. Like, speaking of daydreams, that's what it would make you want to do. Just like sit back and think about literally anything else, because it was just 5 hours of talking about 18-year-olds' art on the wall. And it's like, Jesus Christ. Kill me
Especially too when you know that the student who's being critiqued totally bullshitted it. So you've got to give this valid criticism to something that you know is fundamentally bullshit. That was the thing that pissed me off the most. Like I used to work with this other guy who was in the class, and I know he just did his quote unquote project 5 minutes before class started, and it's literal trash he doesn't give a shit about, yet I'm compelled to spend half an hour critiquing it. Waste of time.
Or the opposite, when like you've put a lot into a piece and then you have people coming at your work with these like inane, ridiculous questions of like, who gives a shit? Like, can you just critique my art for what it is?
Oh, my final semester, I did a creative writing workshop. And when I tell you that I was like furiously texting a friend of mine during these, where I'm like, we were doing a critique of her work, and I'm like, oh, I understand what you're getting at. Like, I'm seeing these rich metaphors and this kind of symbolism, because this person was also like a little bit older. But when I tell you that some of my fellow cohort had no idea what symbols were, or like just completely missed things, and I'm like, you were like, I was furious, because I was like, what are you doing? You're missing all of this rich and like, what do you fucking do? I was just so livid at the idea that they were missing all of this really good stuff. And it goes both ways too, right? Where it's like, oh, your critique is dumb and it's bad and you should feel bad, right? Like that's literally how it feels sometimes.
Or it just devolves into this catty one-upmanship rather than actually trying to be constructive. Like
Yeah.
when you're in
Mhm.
critique, at least my experience with it is mostly in writing groups because I did creative writing in particular. And a good critique group is people who actually are interested in their partner's work and they actually want to improve it and advance it. So then they're
Oh, yeah.
doing more of it's a collaborative world building session in the way that what we do here, as opposed to like attacking and deconstructing what they created. Like you want to see, oh, well, if we did this, how much farther can we push this? Or, oh, I see what you're trying to do here. Can you do this to get it across stronger? And it's more about extending the person rather than trying to diminish them and make your rhetoric just sound like you're so smart. That's what I hated about those groups. And a lot of the public groups where there's not a physical or not physical, there's not an empathetic attachment to the person or their friend, or you understand their work, you like their work, you end up getting this like click. And that's what I think would be interesting in this world that we're creating, because you've got these really young hormonal like art students who I'm assuming are trying to find their identities through their art. And so I can imagine attacking each other in terms of their identity through this literal physical critique would be really interesting.
Yeah, Daniel, we're not coming at this next week with a faction. We're coming at next week with a clique. Like you've just cemented that 100%, right? Where it's like, yeah, this is my clique for next week. This is what I've got. This is how I'm doing it. And you're 100% right. So in my experience, the best way to approach like workshops in general is to approach this like a fan, and approach is like, here's what I want to see. Here's what I'm excited about. Here's what I really love and want to see more of, right? Like I tried my best whenever I gave feedback to be excited for the person's work, because it's like, I want to be your fan. I want to be your, like, someone who's excited to read your stuff, not someone who's going to sit there and be like, well, this is shit because you're not Toni Morrison, or this is shit because you're not my favorite poet. It's like, of course
it's
not.
Like
but like, I want to find something. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like a good game master. Be a fan of the player, like help them be the best they can be, as cheesy as that sounds.
It's funny that you bring up this is shit thing, because I also have distinct memories of one of my illustration professors actually telling that to a student,
Wow.
Going to one of their pieces and being like, literally like, this is shit.
It's like, what is that? I mean, I can understand. This is the same thing in coaching, like for sports. Like there are some students where they're only going to react to like actual abuse because for some reason they respond to that and it makes them stronger. And that's a particular kind of learner. But you've got these coaches or teachers that's the approach they apply to everyone. And then you end up destroying people.
Yeah.
Like some people need encouragement. Yeah. Some people need you to be a bastard. Some people need you to be enigmatic. You've got to learn the style that the person needs,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the student that was the target of that ended up dropping out. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mission crushing dreams. I mean, at least look, he's probably he or she they're probably a very wealthy owner of an electrician business, and you know what? All the power to them, because otherwise they'd probably be making $30,000 a year in New York and living on human rats. That's
human rats.
Human rats.
Not just rats.
Actually, that student grew up to be Martin Shkreli, Daniel. So
I mean, he made a lot of money. So yeah. He'll get out. It's all right.
Yeah. Actually, we're dancing around it, but failed art students go on to do horrible things. Yeah. Just look at that guy from Germany in 1939.
Maybe that's our student cult leader. He's a failed art student. Or she.
Ooh. Oh, okay. All right, hold on. Let's get to it. Let's do the recap next time. Yeah.
Like they're trying to deliberately make shitty art or push people to the edge of absurdity because they think it's all nonsense. They're me. Yes. Sorry. Yes.
They're deliberately trying to create new Hitlers, is what I'm hearing.
Yes. No, they are Hitler.
Can we have a girl Hitler this time?
Girl Hitler. We had a
lady Hitler, but we haven't done like a girl Hitler.
Non-binary Hitler.
Non-binary.
Ooh, hold on. Now we're on to something. Okay, hold on. Let's slow down. Let's get back to our recap. Okay, can we recap so we can go ahead and roll for the twist? Because man, we're all over the place, and I love this. I love what we're evoking here. So Daniel, can you start us off? You start us off. What was your first twist, and how do you feel? Has it been satisfied?
Only the janitor is fully aware of the conspiracy, and nobody but students believe him.
And how do you feel? Has that been fleshed out enough?
I mean, I don't know that it needs, like, it can be incidental or used as a tool in other things. Like, I don't think it's a central thing, but I think that it's a jumping off point. So it doesn't. I'm okay with where it is.
Gotcha. Okay. And I like the idea that it creates an anchor point for conspiracy, and it also sets a tone, right? Like, this isn't a full blown conspiracy. It's not a well known thing. It's kind of something that's kept under wraps to a certain extent. So, Courtney, what was your first tenet? What do you got for us?
That was that there's a rumor that students who have romantic dreams about each other are destined to be together. And I think that we could definitely flesh that out more in, make it more of a dating sim next time.
Yeah, it seems like we need that could be something very central, because the fact that they're destined to be together says something big. And it makes me wonder if the principal characters are entangled in this way, and there must be some question about the romantic state of the villain, because then maybe that's something that they're lacking.
We could have like a non-binary LGBT-friendly polycool as Happy Pride Month, everybody.
Courtney, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm like, we could have an evil polycule as like the villain, and I kind of love that.
Yeah, maybe the villain's clique is all LGBTQ like villains. We don't get to have gay villains all the time, so let's do it.
I mean, wait. We're indoctrinating. We're literally the villain is literally about indoctrinating them into a love cult. Yeah, into a gay agenda. So like,
nice, like it. It's the gay agenda. Dark Lord. Well, because that's not the Dark Lord. We know it's the kid that's involved with the Dark Lord. Tangentially, right?
We're gonna have to figure this out next episode.
Yes,
we're gonna have to sit on this, stew it over a little bit. But I think that there's some potential here that there is something here that we can potentially deal with, right? So, my first tenet was that everything is overtly avant-garde, overtly pretentious, and I feel like we've definitely dug into that quite a bit, and I'm happy with how we've we've definitely embraced it fully. It's not like people are out here getting like, well, I'm an architecture student. Like, no, the fuck you're not. Okay, that's not what this school is about. So yes, I'm okay with this. I'm happy with how it's kind of turned out. Frankly, it gives the school and the setting a vibe that I'm very much enjoying right now. So Daniel, what was your second tenet? What have you got going for us?
Dark Lord needs students to daydream in order to fully materialize itself, and they appear as a collection of whatever sort of art the person is working on. So they could be in the paintings or in the performance or whatever.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll definitely get into that a little bit more next time. How do we feel about this?
Yeah, I think it might be teased out through the particular cliques, because I assume they're each probably working on different types of art. And so that would show, because the point of this is to show the influence of the Dark Lord on the students through their art.
So Daniel, are you suggesting, by the way, that we need some kind of a daydream believer type system is that what the Shadow King needs?
My thought is that, like, if he's some sort of dream, like, because they establish as a hidden school of dreams, right? And in my head, this is the thing that exists in that world, this Dark Lord. And in order for this thing to reify, to be in the real world, it needs a way to pass from A to B. And so my thought was, as the kids daydream, whether they're aware of the fourth school or not, that creates a passageway for the Dark Lord. So the more they daydream, the more the world becomes permeable to him.
Mm. By the way, do we want to give the Dark Lord a better name than just the Dark Lord? Can we maybe just like call him like Dreamweaver? You know, like something like that.
Like the
Nightmare King.
program.
I was thinking the song Dreamweaver, but yeah, that works too.
His name is Macromedia Dreamweaver.
Excellent.
Or I mean, hold on. We could also do Dream Lover if we're sticking with Mariah Carey. You know, like we can go. Look, I'm just saying that there's a lot of songs that have dreams and lover, or like some combination of that. That's all I'm trying to say here. Anyway, Courtney, what was your second tenet? What do you got for us?
That was about the senior prom / Met Gala major event of the winter ball, which is like the event to go to in the school.
I feel like that's going to take major importance as of like, that's going to be like the main setting for next time is my guess. Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Hell yeah. And my second tenet was when it comes to defending your criticisms of your art, it was a literal manifestation. Like you're being physically attacked by magic and you have to fend it off in some way. And I think that we've kind of elaborated on that. And I think that's going to be a really fun thing that we can talk about more next time as well. Do we have any other questions about this world before we need to roll for a twist?
No, but I would like to share one little school tidbit that reminds me of the teacher telling that one student that they just fucking suck. Like I remember this was way back. This was like maybe 8th grade, I think. And I had this teacher. I don't know if she's still alive. Her name was Vino. And she was this like ex-nun that would threaten to jump on your desk, and she was just brutal English teacher. Okay. And she just like was obsessed with 5-paragraph essays, which yes, they're stupid. But to be fair, she was a very good editor and teacher. Like she was good at what she did. She just really mean. But I remember, as I really respected her. I remember one time, I was writing fantasy crap back then, and she was talking to some other teacher, and she's like, "Oh, it's a shame that he writes fantasy, don't you think?" And I'm like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
I'll never forget her saying that, like within earshot of me.
That's terrible. Oh my God. I also had a psychotic 8th grade English teacher, though I did not respect her. She was just like a complete bitch to everybody.
Yeah, I feel like they affect you in different ways. Like I really did respect her, and she did teach me. She taught me how to edit, like at a very early age. I mean, because you would get back papers that were just a sea of red edits of every sentence, and when you did the work, it actually came out better. But at the end of the day, she was an ex-nun. So there you go.
Yeah.
We're going to leave it at that, I think. Unsurprising, I didn't really have any terribly influential English teachers in my life until I got to like undergrad. But I don't know. I have heard many stories of like, I'm going to write a novel to spite my teacher who told me I'd never amount to anything. So very much understand that. But I'm ready to roll for the twist. How about y'all?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So our twist this time is now add in something cute. And I think that we'll have plenty of opportunities to do so in our very fun, potentially like, now I'm thinking like John Hughes like level of like cuteness in terms of clicks and stuff like that, but just with a lot more bad art. Oh boy. Okay. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of World Build with us. A big thank you to longtime patron Gluax. Truly, this was a gift and a curse of a prompt. So big thank you to that one, Gluax. Remember that if you want us to build your world, you can always go to our website, worldbuildwithus.com, where you can click the link, follow some instructions, and within a reasonable amount of time, we'll be building your world. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on YouTube and we're on Twitter with links for that on the website, or you can just Google it. You'll find us there. Or DuckDuckGo, nothing wrong with that, however you want to find us. If you want to talk to us more directly, you can go to our Discord where, I mean, this prompt is basically born out of a Discord discussion. So if you want to be involved in that, go to our Discord, chat with us more directly. Or if you're feeling particularly generous or just want access to sweet, sweet patron-only goodies like 2 episodes worth of prompts, then by all means, go ahead and keep the podcast going by going to our Patreon. That's going to do it for this episode of World Build with us. Remember that we love you very much. We're going to get through this together. Until next week.